So we're following a session on the future of infrastructure, and we know that there's more and more traffic in our major cities. And we're here today to talk about a major project that's underway in the city of Seattle, Washington. Roger, why don't you start by telling us about this project?
Sure. I'll start by putting the project into some context for you. We have one of the most rapidly growing economies in the country right now. We have more construction cranes in Seattle than in New York and LA combined. We're also, with the governor's leadership, we've embarked on a $16 billion investment program at the state DOT. Sound Transit, our transit agency, recently passed a $54 billion bond measure, so there's a lot going on. And in the midst of all of that, we're replacing the Alaska Way Viaduct. We had this small earthquake back in 2001 that was really a wake-up to the folks in the Pacific Northwest. In the 70s and 80s, we began to learn that we sit in a place that's really seismically vulnerable. And Highway 99, which is one of the two major north-south routes through Seattle, Interstate 5 being the other one, goes right along the Seattle waterfront, basically between the downtown and Elliott Bay. It was built in the 50s. It's not seismically resilient, and so we spent 9 years as a community, because I come from the good Washington. We get stuff done, but sometimes it takes sometimes it takes a little while. We debated the solution for 9 years. Do we replace the bridge? Do we just bring everything into town and let it happen on arterial streets? Or do we build a tunnel? And ultimately we decided over that period of time to build a tunnel. So a partnership, the Federal Highway Administration, WashDOT, City of Seattle, Port of Seattle, King County, elected to do what is actually 30 different contract packages. US 99, State Route 99 is going to go under the city in a twin, a double stack tunnel. And we're also tearing down the old viaduct and opening the downtown up to the waterfront. So all of those businesses that looked at the backside of our highway will be looking at Elliott Bay and our iconic ferry system and the Olympic Mountains on the other side of the Puget Sound. We're rebuilding the road at the waterfront. Alaska Way will be a wonderful boulevard, sort of like the Embarcadero down in San Francisco. So it's a mix of projects that are designed to move trucks, because we have the Port of Seattle, people coming in, the cruise ship terminal and the like, people moving from West Seattle and SeaTac to the downtown and to South Lake Union. We have a lot of people to move. We also have a lot of people who walk and people who bike. So the project includes connections between the downtown and the waterfront, between the ferry terminal and the downtown. It's an interesting mix.
It's interesting that you've got a representative of a chemical company as your partner on this panel this morning. Jim, what was your involvement in this? And give us a little background on the tunneling aspect of the project.
Sure. Generally, we supplied the chemicals for the soil excavation, primarily. Our company's been involved with the project since mid-2010, long before the project actually started. Our involvement is multifold. Obviously, you get into a project of this size, and as you can see by the monitors, the perspective of the simple size of this machine is pretty fantastic. Over 57 feet, so if you can imagine a 6-story building being pushed beneath the skyline of Seattle, pretty impressive. So with a big footprint like that, you run into several different soil types, everything from clay to sand to cobbles. And soil conditioning, being able to chemically enhance the soil, is the key to efficient excavation. That's where we were involved.
Yeah.
Roger, what all went into this project? How many different agencies, how many different levels of government, how many different parts of the private sector had to get involved for this to get off the ground?
Well, just about everybody in the state of Washington was involved in one way or another. It is a state highway. The viaduct is a state highway, so it was a state responsibility, and we partner with the federal government, so Federal Highway Administration was there. It's between downtown Seattle and the Port of Seattle, so the port was a big player, the city was a big player. We move a lot of transit through there, so King County Metro was a big part of that. We have the historic Pioneer Square District. We have all the businesses on the waterfront. We have all the businesses in the Central Business District. We have all the good people who live in West Seattle and come downtown. We have all the business activity in South Lake Union, which is the north end of the tunnel. So, when you look at that tunnel, on the south end, it's the football stadium, the baseball stadium, and then a working port, one of the busiest ports on the West Coast. On the north end is Amazon's headquarters and South Lake Union, and then Queen Anne and the University of Washington. Lots and lots of people had to be engaged. And something that I've learned over my 40 years of experience is if you're not doing stuff with people, they assume you're doing it to them. And you get what you deserve when you set up that kind of situation. We've been working with a lot of people for a lot of years to make this happen.
So you mentioned some of the benefits to people. Can you elaborate a little bit more? You mentioned that the bikeways, you mentioned highway for cars.
Well, sure. It provides a direct connection to the Port of Seattle, which is huge for trucks, containers going in and out. It provides a direct connection to the cruise ship terminal. It provides a direct connection to Coleman Dock. Washington State DOT operates the Washington State ferries. We move 25 million people a year on our ferry system, and our busiest terminal is right there. So a lot of cars and trucks are moving in the tunnel. We also take them off of the downtown surface streets to make that happen. We're restoring the waterfront, which is huge. It's a beautiful place. Since the 1950s, it's been separated from the city by a big ugly bridge, essentially. We're addressing resilience. This, at the end of the day, was all about safety. People ask me, where do you want to be, Secretary Millar, when the 9.0 earthquake hits the Puget Sound? And I want to be dead and buried for a couple hundred years. But in the unfortunate event that it happens during my term, I want to have said I've done everything I can to be ready. So taking that viaduct down makes us more resilient. The tunnel is designed to survive that earthquake. The waterfront will be designed to survive that earthquake. That's hugely important to us. And we're building this in the context, we're also building the longest floating bridge in the world. That's another safety project. We had resilience issues there. We're making billions of dollars of investments, and the tunnel is a piece of all of that. And what we're trying to do as an agency and as a partner with the other agencies in the region and the private sector is give people transportation choices. We're not going to build our way out of congestion. Nobody has yet. People still keep trying. Nobody has yet. We're looking to how do we address congestion? And one way we address congestion is to give people choices about how they get around. The tunnel, the surface streets, driving a car, taking the train, taking the bus, riding a bike, walking, living there instead of commuting to there. We're giving people all of those choices.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the lessons that we've learned in constructing this tunnel?
Well, at the time, it was the largest bored tunnel in the world. I think there's one that is like 6 inches taller, but much shorter. There were some issues with construction. You learn that it takes a team. It takes the right people operating the machine. It takes the right machine. It takes the right protocols. We figured that out. We had a little 3-year glitch while we were figuring all of that out. But about a year and a half ago, we said go, and we moved Bertha, our famous tunnel boring machine who is no more, forward. And when the machine moved forward, it was 15 feet below the ends of the pilings that held up the viaduct. And we did that successfully, and we tunneled through underground, under downtown Seattle, under skyscrapers and parking garages and city streets and the rest. And we got to the end. We had a little celebration. You see the pictures of Bertha coming out of the ground. I'm very much looking forward, a little over a year from now, to cutting the ribbon and seeing that piece of infrastructure working. And then we're going to get started on tearing the viaduct down.
Very good. Any final thoughts on the future of tunneling, perhaps, Jim?
Absolutely. I think there's a new wave of enthusiasm for tunneling globally, certainly. And honestly, whether it's transportation in Seattle or the Clean Lake Project in Cleveland, Ohio, or a metro in New York, I believe you'll see tunneling continue to grow at a rapid pace. Seattle really set some new horizons. As Roger said, at the time it was the largest machine ever built. As I said, 57.5 feet. The one in Hong Kong is only slightly larger, 6 inches. And so you've got the three big ones, Sparvo in Italy, Bertha in Seattle, and the new Hong Kong project. So things are happening. Tunneling is again, you're not going to save our way out of congestion, but it certainly is a positive thing going on right now.
And we'll be back building more tunnels in Seattle. We, as a part of the ST3 transit package, will be building new light rail tunnels under the downtown. So looking forward to more of that.
Very good. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.